President Reese, faculty, members of the board of directors, staff, family members, and of course, members of the graduating class. Unlike most graduation speeches, I want to start out with a confession. You see, I was almost one of you a few years back, but I didn't make it to where you are. I've been a Missouri Synod Lutheran all my life, so I guess you could say this is my church school. A few years after I was elected to the Minnesota State Legislature, I thought I might be cut out to be a math teacher. So I started taking classes here at Concordia to get my certification. But I couldn't handle what each of you has done. I couldn't handle the course load, so I dropped out and became a congressman. So congratulations on doing what I couldn't. My time allotment today is about as long as my Concordia career, 8 minutes, so I'll get right to it. The purpose of education, especially at the graduate level, is not about getting smarter or sounding smarter. The purpose of education is learning, so you can get things done. You have two great examples to follow right here on your campus of how to get things done. The first is the roof right above us, here in the Gangelhoff Arena. Ron Gangelhoff was a salesman. He made the money he donated to build this place by filling the trunk of his car with kitchen knives and selling like crazy. The key to his success was realizing that people don't just want knives, what they want is stuff cut up. So it was his personal demonstrations, cutting stuff up, that eventually made Chicago Cutlery a marketplace winner across America. And then there's your football stadium. It proclaims to the thousands of passersby on I-94 that it is Seafoam Stadium. Seafoam was invented by Fred Fandry. It protects motors and keeps gas from going stale over the winter. Fred mixed up batches of this stuff in his garage, and he carried it around lakes in his fishing boat in old beer bottles, selling it to his fellow anglers. Last year, they sold $7 million of Seafoam, and you are the beneficiaries of that success. How did people like Ron and Fred get stuff done? And what can we learn from their success? If you get over the fact that I work in a town notorious for not getting stuff done, here's a few ideas I'd like to share with you, and maybe one or two will help. Number one, keep getting to know you. If you ever visit my office in Washington, you will see that I made a plaque that sits on my desk to remind me and everyone who visits me why I'm there. It has 4 words on it: listen, learn, serve, lead. These are 4 words that I try to live by. I've had it with me since I was first elected to Congress, and I'm not suggesting that you get a plaque exactly like that, but I will suggest that you do find a motto who expresses who you are and what you stand for. I'm always in danger of losing myself in Washington. It's a city of thousands of identities and personalities available for lease. That's why whenever I can spare the time, I head for the Boundary Waters. It's a place that I deeply enjoy. It's a place where I reintroduce myself to me. I'm not telling you to go to the Boundary Waters, but find a place that helps you get to know you. My number 2 suggestion for how to get things done is innovate to motivate. As you take your places as leaders in fields like healthcare and education and management, you will need to motivate others by being a little different, by being innovative, by being creative and looking at something perhaps everyone has seen a million times, but then looking at it in a little different light. There's an example of that right here in Minnesota. At some point, somebody looked at the same old cheeseburgers they've been eating year after year, and then they thought, what if we put the cheese inside the hamburger patty? Now, you don't need to start your own Juicy Lucy chain, but that's exactly the type of thinking you need. If you can think like this, and better yet, be open and accepting of this type of thinking from others, the innovation and motivation will take care of itself. And here at Concordia, they're motivating a lot of people with cuts in their undergraduate tuition. This is remarkable. Offering people value in education. What a concept. I know that McAllister, just down the road, offers its students a fine education, but twice as good as Concordia's? No way. Victor Hugo, the one who wrote the book Les Miserables, said it this way: "There is one thing that is more powerful than all the armies of the world, an idea whose time has come." So, look for one of those ideas. Number 3, learn the patience that comes from faith. Even as you're trying to innovate, you need to realize that things can change only so fast. The billionaire leader of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, put it this way: "You can't get a baby in 1 month by making 9 women pregnant." Okay, now maybe Martin Luther would be a more appropriate example for this occasion. When Martin Luther confronted the evils that had crept into the church, he didn't throw historic Christian faith out. He just began a lifetime effort to reform it. And as leaders, you will have to master the art of maintaining the balance of order and change. Enough order to prevent chaos, and enough change to prevent stagnation. And number 4, be humble and bold. Yes, those two go together. I know because I work in a city that is mostly neither. It's actually counterintuitive, but I found that the more puffed up people get, the less eager they are to risk puncture by taking chances. Thomas Edison, probably the greatest innovator and get-stuff-done guy of the 20th century, said, "We know a millionth of 1% about anything." Thomas Watson, who started IBM, said, "The way to increase success is to double your failure rate." And Helen Keller, who began her life unable to see, hear, or talk, said, "Security is mostly a superstition. Life is either a bold adventure or it is nothing." So as you take your leadership role in the emerging world, be humble enough to be bold, just like Ron Gangelhoff or Fred Fandry. You know how I'd love to travel back in time and come up alongside old Fred's fishing boat and see the look in his eye when I tell him, "You know, that stuff in those beer bottles is going to pay for a football stadium in Minnesota." He'd probably think that I'd been emptying some beer bottles. Or to see Ron loading his trunk with steak knives and tell him, "You know what? All this is going to create a sports arena, facility with half a dozen national championship banners hanging on the wall." He'd maybe want to keep me away from his sharp knives. I just want to close with one of my favorite Martin Luther stories. And yes, I have a favorite Martin Luther story. Of course, Luther was a great man of faith and trust in God, and yet his life was turbulent, controversial, and completely unpredictable. One of his fellow priests, the story goes, challenged Luther along these lines: "Brother Luther, the world is such a mess. Your life is such a mess. How can you so strongly believe that a loving, orderly God is in charge of it all?" And Luther replied, "I always believe God is working out his plans. He's just doing it with his left hand." It was Luther's way of saying, God is a force at work in the world in ways that we don't expect. It's not always logical. I never thought that my failure to be a math teacher would bring me to Washington, but it did. Like old Fred with his beer bottles or old Ron with his trunk full of knives, the future belongs to people who know how to get things done. People just like you. So, get to know you, innovate to motivate, learn patience, be humble and bold, and please, the world needs you to get stuff done. Congratulations.